This is fine. This is fine. This is a poor substitute for therapy, but an excellent substitute for other podcasts.
We're not like other podcasts.
Join us as we find the answers to the universe's biggest questions like, is butter a carb? Does crying burn calories? And what the fuck am I doing with my life? We're here to be your part-time therapist, astrologer, concierge doctor, and fairy godmother. Do you need someone to validate you today? Cool. Come on in. We're fine. This is fine. Welcome back, or simply welcome to our first timers. Welcome to This Is Fine. I am so glad you're here. Happy Libra season. Yes, I do consider Virgo and Libra season to be one solid season. We're also in eclipse season, which we're going to talk about in another episode upcoming with Shannon. Not today. I simply don't have the energy for it. Are you fine today? I hope so. I am giving you a virtual, energetic hug no matter what. To my loyal listeners and community, I am sorry to have kept you hanging for so long. We are back. We are moving. We've got episodes recorded and queued up, and we're back to school, resuming our regularly scheduled programming. So let's do this, babes. Starting with a little table of contents for you. Today, it is just you and me, no interview. So we're going to start with a little update, get caught up on the past couple of months, and then get into a chat today, kind of like a letter to the editor spoken aloud, a little FDR fireside chat. We're going to talk about career ambition or lack thereof and the isolating feeling of maybe not fitting into a prescribed adult life, so to speak. I'll wrap it up with some stuff that I've been into lately, music, obviously some perfumes that I've been liking, clothes and trends from Paris, etc. And then I'll conclude with the questions that you guys asked me on Instagram, sort of like a Reddit AMA, but it's just us here on this podcast with your Instagram questions. Okay, let's wind it back to the summertime. I hope you all had a beautiful summer. This was my first complete summer living in Europe, which was such a trip. I had a little excursion off to Malta, then went to Cannes, Cassis, Crete, and Sicily. Little dips in the Mediterranean. Every single one was so healing. I am such a Mediterranean girly, you guys. I cannot recommend this region more highly. It brings me so much joy, and I don't know how anyone could have a bad time there. I'm specifically full-blown Hundy P obsessed with Sicily. You guys, I know you are already aware of my obsession with Amalfi, Positano, and Italy in general, but oh my God, Sicily was divine. We popped to Palermo for a few hours before going to Cefalù, then a few days in Taormina, and then back to Cefalù. It was a White Lotus extravaganza and a HBO miniseries a little too close to the sun, but that is neither here nor there. I went on a boat, night swam around Isola Bella, rode on a motorcycle for the first time, got adopted by some Sicilian grandparents who have texted me quite literally every single morning in Italian. I ate my weight in linguine alle vongole and amarena gelato, sipped a few Campari spritzes and crodinos, played mermaids with my cousin, and in general just absolutely vibed for a week straight. It was, no exaggeration, immaculate. You guys absolutely have to check out Sicily. Please just trust me on this one. If you want a bougier experience in Sicily, hit up Taormina. We had drinks at the Louis Vuitton rooftop terrace and then the Dolce & Gabbana bar, flex. Went perfume shopping, had granita and brioche at the famous Bam bar, and had gorgeous lunches overlooking the Isola Bella. Truly just so spectacular. If you want a more salt of the earth, locals only vibe, Cefalù is just impossibly charming. It is such a cute town. It's more affordable, lots of little shops, stretches of public beaches, mind-blowing food, of course. The nicest restaurant that we went to was on a deck over the ocean and the beach with the waves crashing under us. We're watching the sunset. So surreal. We got lobster pasta with literally half of a whole lobster on it. And it was like 24 euros. And that was the fanciest, nicest, most expensive meal that we had. I have to stop talking about food right now because I'm starving and we've got a lot of ground to cover. Okay, so we've had some travels, but I was mostly in Paris this summer. I got to see my sorority sister play water polo for Team USA in the Olympics. That was such a trip as well. I managed to avoid most of the Olympic crowds while still enjoying the experience of the event, being here. I did watch Celine Dion's performance like 847 times. And then I saw all of the couture gowns from the opening ceremony at the Dior Museum. That is one of my favorite places in Paris if you are here and you're into culture and maybe not the biggest museum person, but you like fashion or fashion history or design. Cannot recommend that place more highly. Speaking of fashion, we also went to the Versailles Ball, or Le Grand Bal Masqué de Versailles, which is an all-night rave at the Versailles Palace and Gardens where you get dressed up in 18th century period-accurate pieces, full-on gowns, and corsets, and you party until 6 a.m. That is one of the most fun nights I've ever had in my life, and definitely the latest I have ever stayed up. Also celebrating my 1 year in Paris. That happened in July on a guinguette, which is like a floating boat bar on the Seine with my new friends who I absolutely adore and cherish. And my last big update, I finally got my visa renewal approved and was just able to pick up my identity card at the the prefecture. That was a saga we will get to another time. In between the fun, there was a lot of trying to figure things out, which is what we're going to get into today. So here is my letter from the editor segment. Let's talk about career for a bit, shall we? And the concept of not fitting into something you're quote unquote supposed to fit into. I have tried romanticizing my career for the majority of my life, romanticizing work, having a title, a legacy, feeling important. It all seemed very, very alluring. What do you want to be when you grow up is a question that many of us are asked, if not all of us are asked, from the time that we are tiny. My mom personally remembers a toddler Dominique responding, "I want to be mommy," while holding a baby doll. That soon evolved into chef, princess, astronaut, country music singer, professional wife, and Sailor Moon by the time I was 5 or 6. Then there were dreams of being a fashion designer, entrepreneur, beauty business owner, inventor, president, and CEO when I was in my tweens. For the first half of high school, I was set on fashion designer and wanted to own my own design business. I wanted to be Coco Chanel. Shocking. I used to sketch out my signature so I could envision what the branded t-shirts would look like in my lower priced, ready-to-wear Armani Exchange type of collection. I thought I would go to FITM. That pivoted, and then I was set on working in the music industry as a music supervisor for film and television. I was inspired by Alexander Petsavas, who created the soundtracks for The O.C., Grey's Anatomy, Twilight, Gossip Girl, and essentially defined what kind of music was cool in the 2000s and early 2010s. I was obsessed with her and everything that she did for music in that period. I was admitted to USC's Thornton School of Music in the music industry program, which I left after 2 years to switch into neuroscience. And this is where I had my first confrontation with the concept of career, education, and being versus doing. I loved learning neuroscience, but I had no intention of working in neuroscience. I hated when we had to dissect a lamb brain. I couldn't fathom a human one. Blood is foul and the smells made me gag. And I loved the classes, but putting it into practice sounded like a nightmare to me. So I told this to my college counselor. He told me that I needed to pick a practical major so I could find a job after graduation. I said, I thought this was an institution for higher learning, not a job farm. And he used every muscle in his body to keep his eyes from rolling into the back of his head. There was no marketing major at USC, and business school sounded dry and boring. I am sorry, business majors, but I stand by this take. I opted for a public relations track within the journalism school, thinking this type of career would give me the most versatility to work in virtually any industry. So I was trying to give myself flexibility and the capacity to hype up the things that I was excited about. PR sounded like the move. I realized that in this program, I had a knack for writing. This was pretty much my first discovery that I could write. And I figured I could use that as a tool to connect people to experiences, products, businesses, anything that brought them happiness or at least some kind of utilitarian value at a minimum. Again, all of this was romanticizing the career. It was becoming the forefront of my adult life. So of course, anything that's the center of my life, I'm going to romanticize it. And all throughout this saga, I was asking myself, what do I want to be when I grow up? The question is seemingly brimming with possibility. We can be anything. Like, what a gorgeous concept, right? To be anything you want. It feels expansive, infinite, magical, so special. But that's not really the question. We're not actually being asked what we want to be. We're asked what we want to do to earn money, and not even necessarily to contribute to society, but to fit into it, to fit into the capitalistic structure that we are forced to exist in. What role are we going to assume once we leave the nest? It's a survival proposition wrapped in shimmery packaging. How are you going to pay your rent once you move out of your parents' house? And what's your plan for having enough money to eat and survive are harsh questions and far less palatable than what do you want to be when you grow up? You can't necessarily lob those questions at a 3-year-old, but you can certainly ask a toddler what they want to be. We have no problem asking a barely sentient child this question. It's kind of a trip. In terms of being, my own being, I have discovered that I'm quite content these days with who I am. If I were permitted to just be and there were no concerns pertaining to survival and finances, I would be all set. I am so grateful to be in a place in life where I know who I am. I am happy standing still, happy alone in silence with myself, with my own thoughts. I like my own company. I'm proud of how I've grown. And I'm hopeful that this reads as confident and self-assured rather than narcissistic, hopefully. But I'm actually so contented with who I've become, who I am, and who I'm evolving into, that the romanticization, I'm hoping that's a word, romanticization, the romanticization of my career has lost its luster virtually completely. I don't feel any desire to make a name for myself or have some kind of illustrious title. And I don't give a shit if people think my job title is impressive or if they think I'm an important person because of something I did to make money. And this, my friends, this is where I've begun to feel a bit like a pariah and like I don't fit into our societal structure. Most people I know, including probably many of you, are motivated by career success. And if you are one of those people, that is the most normal. It has been drilled into us, especially in the US, since we were tiny, that you get into the GATE program in elementary school. So you get into honors classes in middle school. So you get into AP classes in high school. So you get into the best possible college. So you get the best possible internship and then the best job. You are placed on an assembly line before your birthday candles get to the double digits. And because in our culture, your job is who you are, your job is your identity. When people ask, who are you? What do you respond with? We've talked about this in a previous episode. Most people begin with what they do for work or where they work. The first question most people ask, again, especially in the US, when they're being introduced, and I know you're already a step ahead of me here, what do you do? How many times have you been asked that as a first question when you meet someone? What do you do? What do you do? I've started responding to people like, well, I love restaurants and I like to go out dancing. It's normal to want a storied and successful career and to chase a promotion and a raise, to go after a big title at a big firm or a business, because if this is who we are and the first thing that we get to tell people when we're introduced, of course you want that thing to sound impressive. That's normal. To not want those things and to simply be contented with who you are and enjoying life, perhaps I am projecting a bit of my own insecurity here, that feels like others perceive you as lazy or unproductive, selfish, undisciplined, whatever other words you want to throw in there. Again, this might be my own projection. But when productivity is celebrated within a capitalistic structure, it's only natural that the inverse is true and that we would collectively shame, whether ostensibly or subversively, anyone who doesn't fall into line, the production line, so to speak. Even the word lazy is a capitalist construct. Lazy, as a pejorative term, literally only exists within the construct of productivity being exalted, the demand for production. Are you lazy, or are you simply, I don't know, tired? Are you lazy, or are you listening to your body's call to rest? Are you lazy, or are you simply disinterested in the task at hand, which is normal and okay? Are you lazy, or are you anxious and having a hard time finding motivation? Are you lazy, or do you have something else to attend to and you're working through your priorities? Are you lazy, or are you reserving energy strategically? Ask yourself this the next time you're considered lazy, whether it's by yourself or someone else. And I know I might sound facetious right now, but I'm 100% serious. It ties right into the recent Kim K coined adage, nobody wants to work these days. I read a quote from an article pertaining to this topic from the lens of neurodivergence and ADHD. It said, quote, glorification and moral self-appreciation through hard work extends across all social strata, end quote. So we have been conditioned to believe that it's most morally upright to work hard. And to clarify, there's nothing wrong with working hard, especially if it brings you joy. But to assume that hard work only exists in the space of your job and career is quite myopic. The world around us exists for us to enjoy and live and thrive because people work hard. This is not me shitting on the concept of work and those who do it. I hope that's obvious at this point. And I was just talking about this with my friend Sarah over a cafe creme and a croissant at 10:30 a.m. on a Monday, neither of us in the office. We actually met at our old job where both of us used to be eyeballs deep in career mode. And she said that the shift for her and a lot of other people happened during COVID. She referred to our former workplace as the estrogen aquarium. You're surrounded by women in your field every single day at varied stages of their career and varied levels of success. So you'd see these women, and as she said, they've got the nice handbags, the fancy health food subscription like Sakara, She told me it had nothing to do with the job, but I wanted the life they had. And that makes a lot of sense to me. Her observation also made me realize that we fall into a sort of high school-esque microcosm with a distinct hierarchy. So it's only natural that spending time in that environment every single day would set off an almost primal instinct to desire and go after power and respect, to get higher on the hierarchy. You take yourself out of that fishbowl, the estrogen aquarium or otherwise, and maybe you're like the two of us and you realize that you don't really like hierarchies all that much. Maybe you don't want to swim in that aquarium anymore, trying to be at the top of the food chain. But I've been having this reckoning within myself, realizing that culturally and societally, if you aren't career motivated, if work isn't a big focus of your life, you're a bit of, for lack of a better word, a pariah. At one point in my early adulthood, I was so excited to make a name for myself and build a business. And I'm still proud of what I've done, to be honest. I'm proud of the work I've put into this podcast, into Dominique Media, the content that I continue to create. But I've just had this realization that career is not all that important to me. I don't care if people are impressed with what I do for a living. And I feel like having that sentiment, a career apathy, so to speak, creates this public perception of me that combines all of those aforementioned capitalist insults, people seeing me as lazy, unproductive, undisciplined, etc. Again, this could be all in my head, and if that's how people see me, so be it. But the experience of going against something that is so deeply ingrained, that experience is a bit jarring. And maybe you feel this way. Maybe you feel that career apathy has caused other people to see you in a different, perhaps negative light. Maybe you don't give a shit about how others see you, but you're struggling to reconcile with not fitting into the only life option we were given to fit into. Maybe this has just given all of us something to chew on, reflect on, to think about. What are our motivations? Do we enjoy our work? What is our end goal? How do we feel about hierarchy? Aren't we all inherently deserving of good things in a nice life, regardless of what a capitalist structure deems worthy? Do you want to climb the ladder because it brings you joy? Or because you're stuck in a hierarchy where it's sink or swim? Does it feel like high school to you? Are you trying to be the most powerful person in the room? What does that say about the people beneath you? Do you think some people are beneath you? I'm sorry for the interrogation. This is just what's going on in my brain at any given moment, honestly. So you're getting a little sizzle reel of the pinball machine under my skull. Just some things to think about. Let's pivot to something lighter. Stuff that I love right now that you might also love. At the time of recording in this very moment, it is my birthday week, so I am indulging in some of my favorite things that bring me joy, and I hope they bring you some joy too. First up, a white chocolate flavored iced matcha. It would not be an overstatement to say that I think this changed my life. If you can get a hold of them in any cafe, let me know and report back on what it was like to see the face of God upon your first sip. Perfumes. These are 3 that are recent additions to my wish list. They jumped like right to the top of my wish list. Let's break it down. Number 1, Bouquet Ideal from Xerjoff's Casa Marati collection. This is an Italian niche luxury brand, which obviously is right up my alley. I thought this would be a floral based on the name, but instead it's a spiced amber, warm, woody vanilla, kind of like caramelized sandalwood. Warm, cozy, delicious, almost syrupy. I was blown away by this one and so happily surprised by a completely different scent profile. Number 2, Jardin de l'Orangerie by Dries Van Noten. Solar, creamy, milky, lightly tropical, perfectly fresh and fairy-like. Orange blossom. This is a white floral wet dream. I absolutely need this. I would drink it if I could. Number 3, last but not least, the most obscenely expensive on the list, but also the most complimented perfume I've ever worn. Everyone told me to buy it despite knowing full well that this is a €500 bottle of perfume. Amouage's Guidance 46, the extrait of the iconic Guidance perfume. This Omani perfume house delivered a masterpiece from Canton Biche, one of my favorite noses. It is the most elegant and sumptuous woody floral amber. Listen to the notes, babes. Top notes: pear, rosewater, bitter almond, frankincense, hazelnut, and pink pepper. Middle notes: rose, osmanthus, saffron, jasmine. Base notes: there are some woods in here that I don't know how to pronounce. Akigala wood, Georgie wood, sandalwood, ambrette, vanilla, labdanum, ambergris, and cypriol. Holy shit, you guys. This is, I know I say the word masterpiece a lot and I hype a lot of things up. This is a masterpiece. I cannot emphasize this more strongly. As for what I'm wearing right now, currently at time of recording, Cuir Beluga from Guerlain, a soft vanilla white suede with the most delicate patchouli, immortelle, amber, and heliotrope. It smells like luxury. It smells like soft girl living. It's like what your vision board says about like a soft, luxurious life. That's what it smells like. It's incredible. Music that's been on repeat for me has been Italian pop and Sabrina Carpenter. You can find both on my Spotify in the hyperlink in the episode description. Some styles and some items I have noticed in Paris lately. The Paris quote unquote fashion report. Not really fashion, but you get it. Baggy and straight leg barrel, low rise, full length jeans. Mouthful right there. I know I said that I would never wear low rise again, but here we are. They actually look good, you guys. The ones from Zara and Massimo Dutti are inexpensive. They look amazing, very stylish right now. 10 out of 10 recommend. I will sprinkle some hyperlinks again in the episode description. The trick with these is to make them look posh with like an elevated top and some cool shoes. Too many casual things together and you look like a teenager, specifically if you're around 5'2.5" or 160 centimeters. I'm also obsessed with my Onitsuga Tiger sneakers. They are kind of like a luxe fashion girl offshoot of Asics, like Asics is the parent company. I have the Mexico 66 style and they are so comfortable. I love them so much more than the Sambas. I got the Sambas, they destroyed my ankles. If you followed that saga on Instagram, you're welcome for the PSA. I'm also loving that pink is still having a moment in French fashion. I see it at all of the grand magasins, like the big department stores. Je suis obsessed. I'm having a fuchsia era right now, and I'm also super into purple, like a punchy, saturated, cool-toned amethyst. Chanel actually just released a purple eyeshadow palette, and I don't think I've bought eyeshadow since like 2009, so I might have to change that now. We're going to close this out with a Q&A. We did the Ask Me Anything on my Instagram, so I am getting to your questions now, most of them at least. Let's start with number 1. What visa do you have that allows you to live in France? I am on a long stay visitor visa. We have an episode coming up next from my immigration attorney on how to move to France. Stay tuned, subscribe to this podcast, and you will get notified when that episode is out. So are you a winter or what? Literal LOL. The color seasons craze / hyperfixation overtook me this year, and I finally sent a photo of my face to my arch nemesis, ChatGPT. The robot oracle has spoken, and I am a winter. We can all rest now. We have found peace. Thank you for asking. Number 3, what was the first perfume you fell in love with? I love this one. This was not my first perfume, but this was my first coup de coeur, as the French say, like love at first sight, instantly heart-struck by this. I was 13, and then my dad proceeded to get me a bottle of either the eau de toilette or the eau de parfum or the eau tendre version for about 10 years. So now my friends from growing up, they smell Chance, and they are transported to being in a limo at prom, high school memories, all of those things, and that makes me so happy. I still think it is an absolutely stunning fragrance, even though I'm in a slightly different fragrance era right now, if that makes sense. But always love for Chanel Chance, my first real love. Number 4, advice for following intuition and gut feeling versus logic. You are asking the right person because I go mostly on gut. I lay out the logical options. In my experience, there's usually more than one logical option that you're kind of deciding between, deliberating between. Or you can logic your way into several options if you're looking at a problem or a choice from many vantage points. So instead of asking a million people, which is my involuntary knee-jerk reaction, I want to ask everyone for their opinion. I've been practicing asking myself, what would happen if you just trusted yourself? And then I let my intuition take over. I've found that we've been culturally conditioned to tune out of our gut and intuition, especially as women, and we're forced to function within practical, logical parameters. So reacquainting with your intuition, training that atrophied muscle is a way of taking your feminine power and your magic back. If you are afraid of making a mistake like I am, that is so normal, but you can get past that fear. One of my favorite quotes is, making mistakes is a small price to pay for trusting yourself. I hope this helps. Next question. What do you miss most about your hometown that you can't find in Paris? Quick list. The beach, sunny, warm weather 90% of the time, California burritos, inexpensive dog grooming and dry cleaning, and In-N-Out Burger. What is your favorite part of Paris? I love this question too. I absolutely love that it has the benefits of living in a major world hub, like a cosmopolitan city, a world capital, but at a slower pace than New York or another American city. It's the perfect pace, the perfect combo, in my opinion. It feels less stressful. I know for a lot of French people, this is their New York, so that sounds insane. But to an American, this is a dialed back version of a big city. I love it so much. I could also wax poetic about the architecture, the views, the vibe. It is the most exceptionally stunning city. It is just breathtakingly beautiful. And this is just on a personal level, but I love how aligned that I feel here. If that makes sense, I feel like I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be, and that is priceless. On the opposite, what do you not like about Paris or Parisians? I have a boring but honest answer. That is the French bureaucracy, having to stand 3.5 hours in the rain and hail outside for a pre-scheduled appointment to merely pick up a residence permit, literally just grabbing a card. That is insane to me. I am used to American efficiency, which apparently comes at a cost, the cost of a faster-paced, more work-focused, more stressful life. But there has to be a happy medium, right, you guys? Like, there has to be some kind of happy medium between these two. In terms of Parisians, I don't dislike anything. I have been incredibly fortunate and have met some of the nicest human beings here in this city. So I'm very happy with all of you Parisians. I love you. Have you visited other parts of France? And if so, are there any places that you'd want to live? Yes and yes, but not yet. I am obsessed with the Mediterranean, as you know. I've said it a million times before, and I absolutely love the Côte d'Azur. And I could see myself living there later in life, or at least having a house down there, my house in the south, to spend more, time in warm weather, time by the sea. I've also visited, in terms of other areas of France, around the Île-de-France area, Champagne, Mont-Saint-Michel, over in Normandy, and Marseille, including Cassis. I still need to go to Bordeaux and see a bunch of other regions. Tell me about moving your dog abroad. I can never hear enough about this topic. Okay, so Stella is a trained service dog, so the process is more streamlined for us, and that might not be a helpful answer if you're hoping for pet transport tips. But in terms of our experience, she slept 90% of that 10.5-hour flight from LAX to Charles de Gaulle. I got a lot of travel advice from her service dog trainer. Her name's Michelle. She is the owner of Golden State Service Dogs. A quick breakdown of what that was like for us. We had all of our paperwork from the vet for our required country stamped and returned by the USDA within a certain amount of hours for our flight. Had all the documents for the airline. Then I tired her out first thing in the morning at the beach with a lot of zoomies running and swimming early in the morning. Obviously very emotional for me, like our last beach morning. She ate a really early meal and then nothing else for the rest of the day. I took her to the groomer to get all the beach grime off of her and get clean for the plane. That also tired her out some more. We drove to LA. I let her do some more running. We took potty breaks, and then I scheduled a red eye. So it would be in the natural time period in which she would sleep and not have to pee. So she's used to not peeing in that time for about 12 to 15 hours every single night. So that worked out perfectly. During the flight, I gave her sips of coconut water for her electrolyte levels since she had been we had withheld the food and water. And then at the end of the flight, or toward the end of the flight, I started to give her some freeze-dried food, just little bits, because I knew she was really hungry, but obviously don't want to trigger a poo. She made it through to security and customs and baggage claim before having to go pee outside, which was wonderful. And then I have a driver in Paris who has done almost all of my airport transfers, like pick up and drop off. And he has one of those big black vans. So I texted him that I was moving, and he was totally fine with getting Stella. So that's how we made it from the airport to our new house. All right, that's all for the Q&A today. This was a big episode today. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for being here and being a part of the This Is Fine community. I hope you enjoyed catching up with me. This was a little one-sided, so let me know how you are doing. You can join us on Substack at Dominique on Rose. Obviously, that link is in the episode description for you. You can leave comments, let me know what you want to hear next on the podcast, and subscribe so you get all the fun stuff delivered to your inbox: shopping, astrology updates, Paris tips, pictures of Stella, and more. If you enjoy reading and like hanging out with me, you will love it over there. Have a beautiful day, my gorgeous loves. Gros bisous. À bientôt. Bye. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of This Is Fine. I've been your host, Dominique Michelle Astorino. We're based in San Diego, recording in studio at DLI Productions in Paris, Pacific Beach, with Emmy Award-winning sound designer Dan De La Isla. This is a comedy and advice podcast, but for legal reasons, this entire podcast is a joke and none of it is medical advice. To download the transcript or learn more, visit thisisfinepodcast.com.